G'day everybody, and welcome back for some more Survival Impossible. And I have been having a lot of thoughts about my railway line. First, it's huge, which is occupying most of my thoughts. But that means that what I'm trying to do with this design is come up with something that can be built relatively easily. So the last big construction I did that followed along a similar sort of principle as the railway line was this conveyor line. This conveyor line had to remain vertical the whole way along, like the posts are vertical and then they had to link up between them. And I used hinges to do a lot of the connections, which makes a lot of sense because it's conveyed, so it needed to be something like that. But for a railway line, I don't want it to be powered. I want all of the grids to probably be unpowered and definitely be static. So these ones, the bits in between the pillars, the posts, they're all mobile grids, which isn't ideal, and is definitely not ideal if I'm running a train along it, hopefully at maybe 40 plus meters per second. That's kind of my goal. I'm not going for 80 or something crazy like that. I think 40 meters per second is quite reasonable. That shouldn't take me too long to travel over the distances that I'm going to be traveling. But should still be safe enough to run a little bit of, well, to have the turns not be incredibly gradual. And I think I might have an idea of how to do this. The unfortunate thing is, I believe this means I'm going to have to build the rails out of blast doors. And that is very expensive. And it's not going to be a single row of blast doors. It'll be a double high rail of blast doors. I've thought about whether this should be a monorail or whether it should be a standard rail system with 2 rails. And within the limitations of what we work with Space Engineers and putting wheels on blocks, I do think that a monorail design has significant advantages here that it doesn't have in the real world. The biggest advantage, though, is in the construction phase. If I have 2 rails that have to line up and have to maintain an exact distance between one another, there's just no way I'm ever going to be able to do that in any reasonable time frame. It's going to be so slow trying to get each part to align to the next bit, to align to the next bit, to align to the next bit, and so on and so forth, to the point that it would probably stop me from actually finishing or even really starting the project. Whereas a monorail, I believe with the idea I have in mind, I should be able to do any turns with a singular hinge, and I've come up with a method to build the new section as I build the new section to make it a static grid as well. And then have it all nice and supported, and we can probably print these sections in the Forts Capac printer, transfer them down there, maybe even via the railway itself, lock them into place on the new hinge, and then make them static. So that I think that'll all work. But all of this is still fairly distant thinking, because right now I need to start building some sort of train station. And deciding where that train station's going to be. So we've got the aerodrome down here, the conveyor linkage up here, and we've got a fairly steep hill from the top where most of my buildings are, and down here. Which means if I built my train station up here, I have to first traverse that hill. But if I build it down here, I've already got one less hill to go. Which kind of tempts me to make the aerodrome also the train station. And if that ends up not feeling right, there is the possibility I could expand the line to continue up here and have like multiple stops. But I think starting down there is probably the way to go. Now, where did I park the absconder? Over here. So if we have a look at this area, the Panini probably doesn't need to continue to park exactly where it is. In fact, it should probably not park there and should move somewhere else. If I'm going to have a train line that's going down towards the valley, if I can get the angle right, the valley up here, I think it pulling along around to here and maybe having the train station over here would make some sense. And then I can make a proper landing pad for the Panini in this area. So the Panini lands in the middle, train comes along here, control tower can look over the train station, and that should work. Maybe. The thing I'm planning on building is big. It is tricky to figure out exactly how much space I need. Also, I wish I'd built more of these things as cargo containers. It would be really handy for filling up my O2 bottles when they're empty. There's a part of me that feels like this spot is quite a logical place for a train station to pull in. Oh. Largely because it's not got any trees. And I don't have to then quickly curve around the back of the control tower. If I came in there and train station near alongside the road. Let's go have a look over there, see how that feels. Also, let's get rid of these random bits of scaffolding that I've placed here for doing repairs, I'm presuming. I don't want to put it behind the hangars. Behind these Quonset huts just feels strange. It's like, why would you put the Quonset huts in the middle between two facilities? That's strange. But if it's here, I come out of the train and then I walk onto the bridge. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yep. Yeah, I like that. I think this is the spot to go with. And it means I can branch off from this pillar with another hinge to come over to this new part and have it all piped up, which is absolutely going to be necessary. There is no way I can do this without having that done. Also, if you're noticing any background noise coming through when I'm talking, apologies. It is absolutely pelting down with rain right now when I'm recording this. And I didn't have another chance to wait, and it has just been raining awfully all day. So apologies about that. It's not cicadas this time, it's just another natural thing. Alright, so let's start by... I might start from this end and test my new method of making things static. Because I think my new method is way superior to my previous merge blocking things together. And if it works here, it'll work on the railway line. We'll need some interior plates that I can build scaffold up there, though. I haven't forgotten about my plan to use the canaries to go and check out what's out there and what I might need to protect myself against. But I thought I would begin by laying this out because I kind of just really want it. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, why? Why does my brain work this way? Oh. So, literally, the thought that just went through my head that made me, was, this monorail's probably going to need to be fairly elevated up off the ground. That means the station's going to need to be really quite high off the ground. Well, I guess I need to build a lift so that I don't have to walk up all the stairs every time. That's how we should design things, right? So yes, I am going to design this around the idea of having a lift in it, especially since I have recently come up with a way to build a lift that I really, really like and is really, really smooth and allows you to reach quite high with something fairly short, fairly compact. Oh, ow. Okay, I'm glad that didn't kill me. So yeah. Stairs first, obviously, because I need to be able to build the space and know what the space is going to be. But I'm totally going to build a lift up to my station platform. Oh no! Question is, how will I go about making that lift airtight? Because obviously I've got the option of just having the entire thing inside. And that is probably the only realistic way I can do it, isn't it? I'll have to have the doors to enter the lift car be actually on this main grid. Now, did I need to do this with a conveyor hinge like this? No, I don't think so. I don't think I needed to do this at all. I probably could have just gone square off this and been quite happy with the positioning because the tower itself is not square to anything else around here. But I've done it now, so I'm just going to accept it. Okay, so that's where the next post is going to go. I'll decide whether that post is going to be part of the building or not in a moment. Ow! Nuts. How long after I eat does my health keep going up? Okay, yeah. Your health just goes up immediately after you eat something. It's not just when you've got your food and water above it. Okay, that's not a valid option for me to continue doing things that way. I am injuring myself far too often. I need to go back to my survival kit. Oh, or just hop in a pressurized space so I get my health back. At least backed up to 70. Okay, that's a little bit safer. Shouldn't end up on nearly killing myself building this last little bit. I know I've got various vehicles that were intended to be used for giving me a lift to get up to places like this. However, now that I've got the iron for it, I don't feel too bad about building scaffolding when I need it. And when it's going to make things just that much quicker. There are still situations where I need to use those platforms and things that I've made, but I just don't feel like I want to use them for literally everything because I just don't need to. Which I guess is sad in some ways, but I think it's just the nature of progress. Alright, so this new technique. I want to see if I can use this method in such a way that it will allow me to connect this to the ground without building a giant collection of blocks around here. So what I need to do is first get something about to the right height. Doesn't need to be as perfectly lined up as I just did then, because I'm not actually merge blocking this to that. What I'm going to do, and I could have done this for the conveyor section before I put the hinge on there, but I don't need to do that here, so I'm not going to, but that's what I would do for the rail section. Then I have this. Then I get a landing gear. Pop that there. That has now locked. That means that if I can get a control panel on this, I can make that a static grid. So let's get a control panel and make sure this works. A control panel on there. Grind that out. Info. Convert to station. And then... ta-da! We have a pillar in the ground. All done. Nothing cost. The landing gear is barely any cost compared to all those blocks I would have had to put down otherwise. But yeah, that's my new way of building new sections. And I think this should allow me to build my train line in a much, much, much quicker way. So the idea would be that as I move along a section of the rail, I reach a point where I need to make a turn, so I put a hinge down. I then attach the new section beyond that hinge. Once I've attached that new section, I can then go underneath it, add a landing gear, lock it to the ground, convert it to a static grid, build the pillars into the ground that it needs to support itself. I can then grind away the hinge, and this is the reason why things need to be built with blast door blocks. When I grind away the hinge, I then need to be able to place something where that hinge was. And if I built with full armor blocks, it would not allow me to put something in there because the second grid would be imposing on that space. But with blast door blocks on both bits, because they're slightly smaller, I can do that and I can have small turns. I can even have slight pitch shifts. Now I should be able to, with this railway line, turn left and right much more quickly than I can go up and down. So pitch shifts are going to be tricky. They're going to take a long time. I'll probably only be able to do 1, maybe 2 degrees. But I think with the left-right turns, possibly up to maybe even 5, 6 degrees per corner, which is pretty decent. That's my hope anyway. We will see how much of this actually works. So whatever train I use is going to need to be fairly long, because I don't want the train to have to run too often, but also trains look cooler when they're long. Just let's be perfectly honest about myself. It's because I want it to look interesting. That's the real reason. So the train station needs to be at least as long as the train that I'm potentially going to build. Oh, this snowstorm, that got intense. And since it got suggested, and I didn't, well, I didn't immediately dismiss the idea to the point that I think I have a solution for it. I'm going to try and have the train come to a stop in a fully pressurized station. So when you step onto the train, you're going from a pressurized environment into the train's pressurized environment. So that's going to add some extra complexity to this. It basically means, and I think this is the only way I can do it, that the rail section in the station is going to be on a piston. Probably only need one. A single piston is going to slide. This is all probably way too much theory crafting, but it's just, I kind of want to get these ideas out there so that I can test them against you guys going, what? Shouldn't you just do it this way because that's easier? So the idea is there'll be hangar doors at the entryway to the station. Those hangar doors can open, allowing the piston-mounted rail to pass through, which means it will connect up to the existing bit of track, so the train can come in, come to a stop, the rail slides back in, doors close, station pressurizes, and then the train's doors can open, allowing me to remain in a pressurized environment through the whole journey, from the moment I go into the airlock into the station to the moment I leave the airlock at the ice base, which I think would be pretty cool. Alright, so if I'm going to have a hydrogen carrier and ice carrier train, it probably wants to be, I think, at least that long. Looking at that, imagining it a small grid, that's what, 5, 10, 15-ish large grid blocks? I think that sort of scale should be nice. Anything bigger feels like it's going to be out of scale with the rest of my base, so I don't really want to go much bigger than that. The station obviously needs to be a bit longer than the train. So what I'm imagining is this side here, where I'm standing underneath, that's where the concourse is. That's the bit where I can kind of go into the airlock, take the lift up, get into the waiting area on the platform, and the doors on the platform will be a separate airlock into where the train is, so that it all just, I can move around and I can see things until I actually board the train. Then the actual rail will go out here. But I don't think this is tall enough. I think this needs to be taller. I don't think the rail should be at this height. I'm going to place this out anyway. Start getting a bit of an idea of how this design is going to work. This will leave me space for parking in front, where I can park the absconder, walk inside, take the lift up. Put a bunch of things in here as a decoration for a full-on station. Now, 4 blocks, probably not tall enough for a lift, and also not tall enough for my plans. So let's go taller. I'm going to build that out there so that this ramp doesn't need to be doesn't need to be removed later. So I think it's going to need to be nope, not that. At least this tall, which is going to feel very tall around here. So what I'll probably need to do is not build all the underneath solidly, but actually just have this lifted up on pillars, because that'll make the whole building feel less gargantuan than it actually is. Yeah, I think this height's probably good. Should I go another block higher? Oh, I forgot how cool that view was. I'm so happy I picked this valley.
Energy low.
It turns out that building in a valley is just kind of fun. Just feels cool. Gives a lot of really interesting views because of the massive mountains and the way the light falls through it. Does mean that I get less sunlight per day than I would if I was in more open plains, but I think it's worth it in the end. Alright, so this height feels like it should be pretty good to me. In my head, I've got a design in mind that is somewhat similar, I think, to the design of the monorail stations that used to be there for the monorail that was in Sydney, where I grew up, and were eventually removed. But there's sort of that that sort of 1980s pseudo-futuristic kind of look, I think, the best way to describe it. And I feel like that kind of resonates with the design that's in most of this base, because a lot of it's that brutalist aesthetic, very harsh, very stark, and then I've come back after a couple of years, and now we're building with this super futuristic looking thing that's actually probably not gonna look futuristic at all in in all that many years. So, it kind of fits to me. So, let's start by, I think what I need to do first is, I think I do need to get most of this design down and have this mostly working as a station before I even start building the train. The reason for that is, if I can get this station working and pressurized, I can build the train in a pressurized environment, which is always better. Just makes it so much easier. I don't have to worry about dying all the time. If we have a look at what I've got here, I've got this post here, and I can extend out in front, which I probably will. And then I was thinking of having something like an arched glass roof. It kind of sticks out and then comes round underneath the rail on this side. So it's all kind of mounted off these central pillars. So what I might need to do is put a pillar here and a second pillar there, so that I can have sort of concourse cantilevered off one side, rail cantilevered off the other side, maybe. We'll see how I feel about cantilevering them after it's in, because I'm not super convinced that that's going to look right. Feel it might look a bit weird. Oh. Is this high enough? This might actually not be high enough. Looking down the end here, this is going to put the rail at the same height as the trees. I think I need to go taller. I think I've just laid all this out, and I actually need to go considerably taller. Because the rail, the top of the rail is actually going to be below the height of this concourse deck. It has to be lower, because otherwise the train that's sitting on top of the rail isn't going to have a level walk onto it from this. Okay. I think I need to go quite a bit taller then. Oh, that's unfortunate. That's a lot to have laid out to have that realization, but I'm glad I at least had it now rather than later. So the bottom of the rail should probably be at the top of the tree. So I need to be 3 or 4 blocks higher than I am. Ooh, that's a lot. Ugh. Now, the unfortunate thing about that is, that means this building's going to end up being taller than my control tower. Oh. Why? That... Does that mean my control tower needs to grow? Or do I just accept that the control tower is old and so is smaller than it should be? Because realistically, if the other building is up at the same height as the top of the control tower, then the control tower should probably be twice as tall as it is. That makes it very tall. Right, while I'm thinking about that, I'm going to do something that's a slight distraction. Well, it's a lot of a distraction. It's a significant distraction, but I think it's something important to sort out. Because I've got improvised experimentation, I have an option available to me. Oh, come on, let me jump on board. I have an option available to me to fill up the absconder with fuel by making something of a jerry can. I'm just thinking about where to put the connector for it. Or where the ore detector is. Because this doesn't need an ore detector anymore. That role is done. Yeah. Let's lose the ore detector. Oh no, I've got the O2H2 gen there. I can't. Nuts. Wait, no. Hang on. I don't need the O2H2 generator if I'm using a jerry can and bringing fuel to this rather than bringing ice. So I can probably lose that too. Okay, I've got some ideas. This could work. So let's lose that. Take out the O2H2 gen. It's not going to split the whole thing in half. Then, what I should be able to do... I think I have to go with a conveyor converter here. Even though it takes up a lot of space. But a conveyor converter goes there. Conveyor junction to join the two. We can only fit one fuel tank, which is annoying. But I can at least fit one. So I've got one fuel tank and then the engine as my fuel capacity. Is there any other way that I can connect these up? I don't think there is. So we have fuel tank there, and then I could have a connector coming out the side here. So that's where the connector fills, and then I just have to fill these blocks in. It's such a pity I couldn't use that space up the top to fit more fuel tank in. Now I'm sure I could make the Absconder more compact, better in a variety of ways with the short wheel suspensions and things like that, but I think I'm not going to. It's kind of got a... It's got a charm. It's been this for so long. It was built with a very specific need in mind that's no longer present. I really can't jump up this again. There we go. I could put a connector on both sides to make it easier so I don't have to worry about which side I'm filling from. I think that works. I can put the ore detector back on the top. Not that it was needed. I'm not sure what else to put up there. Maybe an antenna, actually. Or save it for some event controllers that might be useful later. Yeah. And broadcast controllers. I mean, wait, it's an action relay I want, not broadcast controller. What am I saying? And we'll put the event controller that I inevitably need as well. Okay, now with that made, I can do this. Start with a little connector. A tank. Button. Okay, so this button is going to do one thing. He's going to set this to stockpile on or off. This connector needs to have a slight increase in strength. So I think if I go up to 0.2025, that should be enough. And then I need somewhere around here to hook that up to. So that's going to require a connector, a small grid connector, or a hinge and then a small grid conversion. So I might go... For the sake of being compact, I might go with the hinge. So at the moment, the best I can think of for getting this to look tidy is going to be putting some armor blocks around here. Basically make this look like it's actually mounted on this hinge. And then when we get the large grid version of the small grid connector, I can replace it at that point if I feel the need, which I probably will. So then I need to have another button, and this one will be set to lock unlock, which means I might want to have the same setup on here. Button on both. I could probably have like a timer block set up, but I think with the magnetic strength set high enough, that shouldn't be required. So we take this, stabilize it, flip it around, bring it over here, and now when I let go, it actually keeps the lock. It needs to be stronger though. That's not strong enough. Increase this to 0.035. I can't remember whether I need to increase both sides. I might do. That might have been part of the problem as well. I think it might go by the weakest side. Ah, there we go. There's a little bit, so it needs to go still a little bit higher. 0.05. That looks like it's working. So we switch lock. This is then set to stockpile, which should then fill really rapidly. While I'm getting a little more power. I can then switch lock. Pick this up. Take it over and connect it up. Now, some of you might have seen this same system in play during Wrong Way Out, because Wasted did the same thing with his plane. Oh, that's a problem with that button placement. Okay, this button's placed on the wrong end. Button for the fill. The button for stockpile needs to be on this end. Stockpile on the other tank. And yeah. Unlock, grab it, and I can bring another load over. And I'm actually probably carrying more useful energy than I was when I was carrying ice over. Ice back and forth. And only having really the O2H2 gen to put that ice into. Now, has this distraction been long enough for me to make a decision about how to deal with my train station being way, way, way too tall for the surrounding buildings? No. No, it has not. Oh. How long until I accidentally drive off with the jerry can attached?
Energy critical.
Probably not long. Skanda small backup battery is on safety. Good. It's fully charged up. Skanda main battery. It's got, 60% charge. So I don't think the Absconder's going to run out of power anytime soon. The engine, I presume, is full of fuel. Yep. And the tank, probably also. Yep. So the jerry can is down to... it's empty. Alright. Fill it up one more time. Let the engine run off the jerry can for a bit. Because the tank on the Absconder is full and on stockpile, so I'll leave it that way. So that when I hear the engine cut off, I know that the fuel's run out and the battery will have all that charge from all this fuel. This feels like kind of a nice way to doing this. I'm looking at this jerry can and thinking, what can I do to make it look nicer? And I'm not sure just yet. So if you've got any ideas, let me know. Absconder now gets recharged. It has a better connector system. I'm happy with that. We'll need a button on this side. So let's do that as well. Don't leave jobs half done. That's something I'm trying really hard to do, because I never come back to them. So initially my little break there didn't quite clear my head enough. So I left myself a bit more time, and I think I have come up with a sensible solution to my little problem here with where to put the train station. The station down here is running into the problem of being too low. I need to build it up so high that it becomes out of scale and out of proportion with everything else that's there. So the solution that makes the most sense is just build it up on the hill here. It starts up really high, and then I can just adjust the height of the bridge, like of the rail itself, to try and better match the terrain. The next question then is, if I'm going to build it up here, where? Where do I build it? So we've got the Arboretum down here, we've got my main production building here, we've got the Forts Capac printer there. My thinking is, I build the train station here, with the rail going off there, hopefully to come down around and head towards. Come down, around, and hopefully head towards the valley over here. I think that will work. It's difficult to say whether the elevation is kind of right, and also whether I feel like I need to really smooth the curve around toward the valley. The main reason I possibly want to smooth it out more than it might otherwise feel necessary is because if I smooth it out and go nice and wide, I'm then not kind of bringing the rail height into competition with the control tower as well. The only alternative I can think of is to put it over here. But if I put it over there, I'm losing the opportunity to make this space in here my main area, which has always felt right for it. It's honestly a bit weird that I ended up putting the big printer out the back here because it means I don't often see it. And it's kind of a cool building, and that's a bit eh. Oh. Oh. Is that the solution? Do I build it on that building? Does the train station go above the parking of those vehicles? It's a bit unusual, but it would give me more reason to build stuff into this structure. Let's go up there and see what it looks like up there. It's already quite an elevated spot. It's already piped. I don't remember what's on the inside of that wall, though. I think that's all the big void that I had in there, and that I didn't have a reason to go to. The thing that's making me find this to be an appealing option. Ooh, also replacing these with modern solar panels. The thing that's making me find this as an appealing option is the idea of standing in that viewing spot behind my captain's desk and watching the train go. But also walking past that thing all the time. Because I would put the access way to the station on the far side of that room. Which I know from if this was a busy platform, wouldn't be the right feel. So what I'll do is I'll probably have one access way through there and then another one that's a lift that takes you straight down to the bottom floor on the outside. Yeah. I know this loses me a large solar panel area, which is a bit unfortunate. But it kind of feels right. The train line's not going to get anywhere near anything that I don't want it to. I'll drive under the train line when I go over to my little stone and ice mine over there. Yeah. I think this is the solution. I think this is it. So that means I need to demolish the thing that I built. The thing I spent all that time laying out. Ow. Ow. Dang, high gravity. This does make me happy though, because I do feel like now the Forts Capac printer gets integrated into the base more rather than being this tacked on thing. And I always like it when I'm trying to build a space like this and it feels like each building really needs to be there. And really needs to be... It really gets involved in the whole structure. Because so often I build things in Space Engineers, use them once and then never see them again, and that's always a bit sad. I'm glad I kept measuring this, because it could have been so easy to have gotten a lot further into this build before realizing what was wrong. And to get the sense of scale for me, I kind of just need to see these things. I just need to put something there that I know is about the right size and then go, okay, does this work or does this not? Particularly in large grid. I don't find it such a problem with small grid builds, but with large grid builds, not being able to get that sense of scale by seeing the thing in front of you makes it really hard for me. Yeah, I'll just leave this remnant here for the moment. I don't think I've got any particular purposes for it, but it seems like a bit of a waste to remove that part. The rest of it needed to be removed because it was just so big and unnecessary. It needed to be removed to make me feel better about it. So my thought is maybe a glass covered bit of corridor space out here. And then we have the wall for the platform, which will be mostly glass as well, with then actual platform on the inside. And then I need to have room here for the train's width, the rail, and airtight hangar doors or gates. I'd really like to do it with gates, because I think a pair of gates would look a lot nicer than airtight hangar doors, and they move a bit quicker. The other cool thing about using this as a location is, if I do find some reason to need to go that way, to go east, I could then do that, because this is an easy pass-through station if it needs to be. I'm unlikely to find that reason, but just in case it potentially exists, I want it to be a thing. So we're gonna get rid of this first. The more I think about this, the more I realize that I should just go with a static section of rail in the train station, at least for now, and maybe wait to see if I come up with a solution to have a section of rail that can move in and out of the airtight hangar doors, as they open and close that maybe comes in from outside. I'm, to be quite honest, really struggling with how I might do that. I do have I have a vague idea though. The train's going to be moving fairly slowly in the station. So instead of having the whole rail section move, what if I have a sheath made out of small grid that sits over the rail, tightly, hopefully, that the wheels, that's like sits where the wheels run, but doesn't necessarily fill in all the holes so that it can sit more tightly. And that can slide into position where the doors are when they're open and slide out of the way to allow the doors to close when not. Maybe that can work. Oh, that could work. If I make it out of small grid, I could even have like little hinges and rotors to make it flip into position and then fold itself out of the way. So yeah, I can do something like that later. I don't have to do it now, which is the important bit. The bit that's been messing with my head for the last 15 minutes. I've been staring at this going, what am I going to do? Well, how am I going to make this work? I love this idea. I don't want to neglect this idea. I don't want to, like, dismiss it. I want to try it, but oof, am I ever struggling with where to start with it. So, let's get rid of these solar panels further along. I'm going to lay out this bit of track up to probably this beam here, I think. Because then I can start building the apparatus to actually build the train onto the track. I will at some point need to have like a set of points where I can move the train and add sections or remove or repair sections and make new ones, that sort of thing. I feel like that's going to be weirdly necessary, but I don't think I want to build that sort of building first. I think I want to get the train line mostly started, at least this first section, being constructed before I go to that sort of effort. The reason for that is I don't want to build a structure like that and then realize that it's at the wrong elevation and that I've created an absolute nightmare for myself in terms of how I build this stuff, because I can't easily combine the two track sections together. Now, because I'll have wheels on all three sides of the track, we're gonna need a switching setup that's more like one of the big issues with monorails in the real world. But to be honest, with Space Engineers, probably would have had that trouble even with a regular track anyway, because of the size of the moving parts that we use. Now, is that where the top of the track can be, or should it be a block lower? If it's a whole block lower, I'm kind of getting close to those vehicles down there, I think. I'll go around and see. The reason I'm saying maybe it should be a whole block lower is then I can walk onto the train at a level point and get straight into the passengers area of the locomotive. Alternatively, I could think about the locomotive being fairly wide instead of tall,
Energy
so that it sits
low.
and I can actually fully walk down the side of the train on this side or on this side, and then we just have a little stairway to join between the two sections on either side. Just for something that looks a little bit different, and then cargo and things could sit up top. Something like that could work, maybe? Be an interesting design at the least. The downside of it, though, is it will restrict, like, panoramic views, and I'd love to sit at the front of the train, which I still could do. So many decisions. Like, an unprecedented number of design decisions are having to be figured out right now. So if I'm having a look, if I were to drop that 2 blocks, yeah. Okay. I think the rail has to sit at this height, and I think I basically just have to have stairs or a ramp that I walk up into the train carriage from the platform height. Because if I'm looking at this, if I drop down 1, 2, that's where it is, then there'll be this row here. That's going to be really tight on things like the Remora launcher and stuff like that. think I'll just have to accept the platform maybe isn't at that height, or if I do want to keep it the way that I sort of have it, I just have a set of stairs here, and then I move the platform up 1 block and stick it up at that height to be level with the train. I have to build this whole thing higher rather than building that lower because it is getting, again, same problem. I need a lot of ground clearance for these double height rails. They are a bit of an issue, but in the little bit of testing that I did, because I did a little bit of creative mode testing to try and get my head around what might work here, having that extra height of the rail made it so much easier to get a stable train running and going through the curves, because I just had a much longer lever arm to the points where those wheels were contacting with the rail. So I've added a little rotor here. That's going to be where I build the train from. And that is something I think I'm going to begin next time. Unfortunately, I did run out of time before I got to go and poke at some of the asserts, so hopefully I'll be able to find some time to do that in the next week or two. But at the very least, the train station location and the rough layout, I think I've got a clear idea in my head, or a clear enough idea in my head that I can really get stuck into it next time. If you've got any suggestions about tweaks to the proposed rail car, any of these design elements, let me know. I'd be really interested to see what you guys think and how you think I might be able to improve this. There are some things that I'm not going to be likely to be super flexible on. I do believe that the 2-block height is worth it. So I'm unlikely to do anything to change that based on my own experience of testing different rail cars. I think this will be expensive, but really effective. Oh, what a time for a blizzard to begin. Well, there's all that and plenty more to come. I'm going to get out of this blizzard, and I will see you then. Oh. I mean, it looks like someone's blowing a confetti launcher at me, but if I look out this way, that looks pretty epic. Love it. Imagine the train running through this, coming up from the ice lake. Be very, very cool.